Hey everyone, so tonight I want to discuss Penelope Spheeris' third and final decline of Western civilization. And that, of course, is The Decline of Western Civilization Part 3. And I don't know, this is the most sort of emotionally captivating entry into this trilogy. This one kind of comes completely out of left field in regards to how emotional this movie will get, because with the first two declines, that blueprint is kind of carved in, and you by the time you get to this third one, you're assuming you know what everything is going to be like and how things are going to go down. And whereas technically the formula is 100% the same, she profiles fans and bands, and she discusses like the punk rock scene. Well, not in the second one, but she discusses the punk rock scene and how things have changed or how things are influencing this or that. And then she just gets to know the fans at the shows that she's choosing to interview. And this one, again, like I said, this falls in line with that. But because this is focused on a bunch of gutter punks who are just essentially street kids who have nowhere else to go, and everything in this is just so raw and it's so real that you can't help but feel the emotional impact pretty much 10 minutes in. You know this is going to be a whole different animal from the first two. The second, you realize that she's putting more of a focus on the kids than she is the bands. Now, that's not entirely true. The bands are still a prevalent part of this, but the music, of course, the bands profiled, they're not as good, and they're not nearly as influential or as important as the punk bands profiled in the first one. And the first one, of course, had Black Flag, the Circle Jerks, X. And so, whereas the music in the first one was flawless, the music in this is terribly flawed, because these bands like Naked Aggression and Litmus Green, off the top of my head, they're good bands, but they don't have what Black Flag had. You know what I mean? Or has, depending on how you want to look at it. Technically, I think Black Flag's still around with that What the piece of shit record they released a bunch of years back. But anyways, yeah, if you're interested in the whole old Black Flag sound, skip Black Flag or newer Black Flag and just check out Keith Morris's Off. That sounds like old Black Flag. Anyways, and this one, there's even a couple sort of twists in this regarding three of the street kids profiled. And I don't want to give it away because, wow, like these were demanding reveals. You know, maybe I shouldn't have framed them as twists. They're more reveals. And these are, again, very emotional, especially concerning Squid and Spoon. And in order to find out what happens regarding Squid and Spoon, you have to watch the movie till the end credit scene kicks in. And instead of, you know, like the way every fucking movie has an end credit scene now that means nothing because it just leads into another bullshit Marvel movie, the end credit scene in this, that packs a punch. And I mean, the entire movie is operating off an entirely somber theme. Like, this movie it's still fun to watch. And I've watched it countless times over the years, and it still just as enthralling and as engaging, and the kids' profile, they're fun and sort of bouncy, and they've got some shit to say, and they're kind of witty, and they're, you know, they look cool. But just the reality of how they live, and how at the end of the movie they discuss how a squat fire claimed one of their friends' lives, and it's just, that was just another day for these kids. And like, there's so much trauma, and there's so much neglect, and there's so much abuse. And this movie, of course, was shot in the mid-90s, and here it is in the early 2020s. So a lot of these kids, I'm sure, have perished. And the ones that are still alive, I hope they're doing better, because they would be in their mid to late 40s by this point, if not being like in their early 50s, depending on how old they were here. Here, I say, because I have the third one on, so if I keep pointing in this direction, I apologize. It means nothing to you, and I keep sort of having my attention pulled in this direction because I'm occasionally watching it as I'm talking about it. So I apologize for that. But I don't know, this one, like I said, aside from the music not being as great, the music's still cool, but it just feels kind of disposable. The real meat here is the interviews with the homeless kids. And the reveals at the end of this are absolutely massive. And I think this is everybody's favorite just because of the overall weight that this movie has and this movie carries with it, because it's focused more around street kids as opposed to just like punk rock fans who have homes to go to. These kids, like the gutter punks, they have nowhere to go. And like there's that one scene where they rent a house and those couple kids aren't allowed in because they are referred to as bug people. And it's like, yeah, that's nice. And the house that they rented, or the room or whatever they rented, is a piece of shit. Like the place is far from perfect, and there's like 30 punks in there, and there's fucking vomit everywhere, and they don't give a fuck because they usually live on the street. So for them to say, people living this hardcore, for them to say to those two guys outside that, fuck that, you're not coming in here, those guys must be fucking infested with bugs. Because otherwise, these kids seem fairly accepting. You know what I mean? So I can only imagine how bad those two kids were bug-wise. But that just seems to be... It's funny, too, because that scene where they rent the house out, it reminds me of the chorus from Kids of the Black Hole. House of the filthy, house not a home, house of destruction where the lurkers roam, you know? And it's creepy enough because in a situation like that, if a predator was looking for a victim, 30 kids all drunk all the time in some piece of shit house somewhere in some piece of shit neighborhood, yeah, some creep could abduct and kill whoever they wanted. And so it's scary for so many reasons. And I can't help it because whenever I see that scene, automatically I think of the chorus from Kids of the Black Hole, and it just fits so perfectly. Because I remember when I was growing up, I knew a couple kids who had it really rough. And for a while there, one of them was using my address so that he could get and send mail because he was attempting to turn his life around. And I always think of him as well. Whenever I watch this movie, it's like I'm transported back to grade 11 when he's asking me if it's cool if I would ask my parents if it was cool with them if he could get mail sent to our house. Because he was attempting at that point to, I think, enroll in a trade course at Durham College. And of course, he had no address because he was just sort of couch surfing. And my parents were cool and they said, yeah, he could. And I just don't understand that. Like, I've always been incredibly privileged my whole life. Like, I've always had a roof and a family that cared, and a roof over my head, and a family that cared about me, and like an endless supply of fun and food. And when I watch things like this, it's like, it's just so alien to me. Like, it just breaks my heart because there's not a lot anybody can do. We can give $10 a month to Covenant House and shit like that, definitely. And it's a decent way to spend your money, but you're still never going to understand what kids like this go through on a day-to-day basis because we are so incredibly privileged. Well, people in my boat, I mean, are so incredibly privileged. And I think back to my buddy who needed to use my address to get mail. And it's like, I don't know what happened to him. Within 2 or 3 years, I'd finished high school and I never saw him again. So, see, that seems to be the way it always goes with people like that. Like, it's like these people are so quick to fall through the cracks. And I think that is overall my absolute favorite thing about this documentary. It's the fact that it profiles kids who otherwise would be invisible. So it puts a spotlight on such a serious issue. And Penelope Spheeris does it with such style and such grace and such honesty that you can tell that she's not looking to exploit anyone to try and make money, because she was giving this movie away for free, because that's how I got my copy of this. They, through the Decline's website, if you sent a self-addressed stamped envelope, they sent you a copy of The Decline 3 on VHS. And that's how I originally saw this. Anyways, look, I'm going to go. So thank you so much for hanging out with me for pushing 10 minutes while I discussed Penelope Spheeris' absolutely brilliant The Decline of Western Civilization Part 3. Like always, if you like this review, don't forget to do something nice for somebody. And yeah, giving $8 to $10 a month to Covenant House, it's not asking much, is it? Have a good night. I just wanted to say thank you for making it through the entire video. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to remind everyone one more time, even though I've probably already done this in the video that you just watched, to please click the like button as well as the subscribe button because it helps this channel grow. And thank you for hitting like and subscribe, and we will see you guys really soon.